This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up, and welcome to QnA, the show where I take your questions from the internet and answer them here in video format. A ton of questions to get into. So let's just get into it, man. First question here comes from FD, who says, hey Q, why does it feel like this is a trap game? Is the team overlooking the Giants? I will hope the team isn't overlooking the Giants. I just think for us as fans, this week is significantly just less eventful than the first 2 weeks of the season, right? You go from the first week of the season where you have all that energy just from it being the first week of the season. You're also wondering who's going to be healthy, who's not, because you had a camp where not a lot of guys were healthy for. So a lot of questions going into the season on top of the natural excitement for it being the first week of the season. And, you know, you feel the way you feel. And then week 2 comes around and that game goes the way it goes against the Dallas Cowboys. And then the game happens, right? The week 1 game happens and it goes the way it goes. And a bunch of news breaks about the quarterback's potential status for the rest of the year because of potential suspension, amongst other news that was breaking at that time. I think at one point they signed Cadarius Tony, and there's just a lot more going on that week for the team and for everybody around the team and who likes the team and roots for the team. And then you get to this week and it's just a normal game week. It's the first normal game week of the year. And I think that's why it feels like it might be overlooked, or that the Browns are not really paying attention to it, or that Browns fans aren't really paying attention to this game as deeply. But it's not because people are overlooking the New York Giants. I think people are taking the Giants seriously because of the threat that they have on the line of scrimmage and the Browns' weakness on the offensive line right now. So I think people are taking the game seriously. I just think it's just a normal game week, and we've had 2 very abnormal weeks to start the season. But thank you for the question. Next one comes from Eric, who says, what's up with Mike Hall Jr.? Assuming it's a 4-game suspension, his lack of getting reps, how impactful can he be this year? Was it a mistake for AB to draft him, considering there were other needs available in the draft in the second round? Well, one thing to remember, this is not fantasy football. And the reason I say this is not fantasy football is you don't draft somebody just for 1 year. And a lot of times we do roll into this fantasy football mindset where if you don't get a ton out of a player the first year you draft them, then we're talking about that pick being a bust. But the truth is that you didn't draft Mike Hall, who was 20 years old at the time that you took him, because of what he was going to do day one. You kind of took him assuming that he wasn't going to do very much for you day one because he's 20 years old and he plays defensive tackle. That's a pick that you kind of wait 2 to 3 years to develop before you get anything out of. Look at Alex Wright, 3rd round pick. It's taken about 2 to 3 years for the Browns to really get anything productive out of him, because you just got to get that guy in the NFL shape and get him to NFL size and let him learn NFL concepts before he can really be productive in the league. Same's going to be true for Michael Hall. So no, I don't think you should anticipate there being much there for Michael Hall to do in year 1. And probably year 2, he will start to contribute a little bit more, but really year 3 is when you're going to expect Michael Hall to contribute. And always remember that the Browns are not doing a fantasy football draft. They're not drafting these guys to be on the team for 1 year. They're drafting these guys to be on the team for 4 to 5 years, depending on which round they're taking in. And that is the time that you would evaluate whether the pick was useful or not. It's just far too early to talk about if the Browns should have picked somebody else in the second round or not, because we have no idea what Michael Hall is going to be, what Michael Hall's play status is going to be. All of that stuff is up in the air right now. And until you get more definitive answers on that front, then you just kind of got to wait until that happens. All right, so thank you for the question. Next one comes from 4 Orange, who says, well, all 3 tackles are healthy, Jones, Conklin, and Wills. Who starts, who sits? You know, going into the season, I thought it would be Conklin. And it probably will be Conklin. I just wouldn't be surprised if DeJuan Jones sits. but I think it's going to be Conklin. Wills obviously starts. He's the only left tackle on the roster. I know we're trying to desperately to make this thing work with Jack Conklin playing the left side, but he just hasn't done it in 10 years. He's as old as he's ever been, obviously. And I just don't think it's a great idea. He's coming off of a calendar year injury where he hasn't played football in over a calendar year, right? Jed Wills is very different. He hasn't missed football for a calendar year by the time he comes back, because he'll probably come back before week 9. Jack Conklin went out week 1. He's been out for over a calendar year. He's at the end of his career decisively. We saw the signs when he was out there last time. And then you're going to ask him to flip positions in the twilight of his career when he hasn't done it in 10 years. That's not a good strategy. I don't think that's going to be better than Jed Wills. I think Jed Wills is better than that. Maybe while Jed Wills is working his way into the rotation, Jack Conklin starts at left tackle for a game or two, but I don't think that's the permanent solution. The solution for this year is Jed Wills at left tackle. Jack Conklin, I think, is just a temporary fix to some problems they may pop up based on how these guys are getting on and off the injury list. So, yeah, I think it'll be Jack will be on the bench more than likely. Even though I think there's a chance that he starts at right tackle over DeJuan, more so than I thought at the beginning of the season. My man here says, Cooper said he missed OTAs and minicamp for the first time in his career. Do you attribute his slow start due to missing off-season workouts and not being refined? It's refined. Whoa. Stop. I don't think you mean bad by this. I don't think you mean bad things by this. But Amari Cooper's route running is still as refined as it's ever been. His release is still fine. It's just he's not catching the football. Right? We can't just throw terms in there and assume Amari Cooper is not doing it well when that's not the case. Amari Cooper still running great routes. Amari Cooper still catching the ball, right? The concerns with him are, can he accelerate to the peak that he was last year to get underneath some footballs? And if he can catch as cleanly as he did last year, because he's having a little bit of an issue catching the football right now. But don't come at his route running. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. See, we doing too much. We're doing too much. I need everybody to understand, it could just be possible that Amari Cooper's playing bad. And there's really no reason behind it. I think we're looking for reasons, but Amari Cooper has played bad before, and there wasn't a real reason behind it, and he just played well after it. I think we need to consider that just might be possible here for Amari Cooper. And maybe we should just give Amari Cooper a little bit more benefit of the doubt than we're doing, because the extent to which people are going to justify why they think Amari Cooper's playing bad when it might just not be a thing that's happening for a specific reason. And more than likely, it's not a thing that's happening for a specific reason. It's starting to get ridiculous, right? I've seen people question his professionalism. I've seen people question whether Amari Cooper can still run routes. We just saw that. We need to chill out, man. We really need to take a pill here. Like, for real, we need to take a chill pill. All right. Cole says this. When do you think Cadarius Tony may be ready? Is he a drop-off from David Belt? Look, man, I don't think Cadarius Tony is somebody we trying to get ready. I think Cadarius Tony is just somebody they having fun with, trying to experiment, see what happens with. But I don't think that they really got a plan to play Cadarius Tony. I don't think that's what the Browns are on. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I'm not about to sit here and act like the Browns are getting Cadarius Tony prepared for anything, because why? Cadarius Tony's not good. Cadarius Tony does not have a track record of being good. The only reason we think Cadarius Tony is anything that might be helpful to this team is not because he's been good in Kansas City, just because he's played in Kansas City is the only reason we think Cadarius Tony might add anything to this team, because he wore the Kansas City jerseys and he's famous. So we've talked about him, but really we haven't talked about that production. Cadarius Tony has not gotten over 200 yards receiving in a Kansas City offense. His highest receiving total in his career is 400 yards. We're talking about Anthony Schwartz level production from Cadarius Tony over the years. So no, I don't think they're getting Cadarius Tony ready for anything. I don't think we should anticipate that they're getting Cadarius Tony ready for anything. Outside of his fame and his profile, if you look at Cadarius Tony's stats, you know what they look like? A dude who's on the practice squad snaps. It might just be he on the practice squad to run scout team. I don't think Cadarius Tony's getting ready to be getting prepped to get some role on this team when they already drafted Jamari Thrash and Cedric Tillman. There's no world where they should give a role to Cadarius Tony before they give it to two dudes they drafted pretty early in the draft. Well, not Jamari Thrash, he was 5th round pick, but Cedric Tillman, they still took him in like the 2nd or 3rd round. There's no world where we're like, nah, we got to see what we got in Cadarius Tony first. Why? What has Cadarius Tony ever done to justify that? Like, this isn't some over-the-hill player that used to be productive that we're kicking the tires on to see if they could do something. This isn't like Joe Flacco last year where we put him on the practice squad to get him ready to play because we needed somebody. This isn't that. This is a dude who's done nothing and produced at the level of what you would expect him to be at, which is the practice squad. So, I don't really think we prepping Cadarius Tony for anything. King says, when is the line going to be complete? How big of a loss is Bill Callahan? I don't think this, look, we doing this too much, man. Every time somebody brings up Bill Callahan, I want you to pull up the Tennessee Titans offensive line and tell me if they're playing great right now. They're not. Bill Callahan's over there. Like, Bill Callahan is, and I'm not saying this to disparage Bill Callahan or say Bill Callahan's overrated. Well, I am saying he's overrated. So let me be clear on what I'm saying here. I'm not saying this to tell you that Bill Callahan meant nothing to this team. But what I am saying is that you are overvaluing what Bill Callahan brought to a veteran offensive line. Fact is, this Browns offensive line hasn't been as bad as people think it's been, despite the fact that they've been playing without their starting left tackle and technically their starting right tackle. They've been fine. They've been able to hold up. Deshaun Watson had a lot of big pockets in that 2nd week of the season. So I don't think this is the Browns offensive line stinks now because the coach changed thing. I just think they held a little bit at the end of the game, but they were able to run the ball at will. They made some strides there. I think the Browns offensive line is fine as far as they could be, like given the situation that they're in. And I don't think this is about Bill Callahan. Bill Callahan is a good coach. But this unit was a veteran unit before Bill Callahan got there, right? I don't think Bill Callahan made Joe Bitonio a good player. I don't think he sprinkled some magic on Wyatt Teller and made him into a good player and then took that talent away with him when he went to Tennessee. I still think Wyatt Teller's capable of playing some really good football. The same thing is true with Ethan Posick. The same thing is true with DeJuan Jones, who had an excellent game last week, right? A lot of the Bill Callahan doomerism that we saw in the comment section was kind of based on DeJuan Jones' performance in week 1, but he was excellent in week 2. So I don't think this got anything to do with Bill Callahan. In all respect to Bill Callahan, I think this just has to do with execution and individual efforts. The Browns just held a lot in that last drive. But if you look at the ability to move the ball in that last drive, they were able to do it. I think it's that simple. I don't think this has anything to do with Bill Callahan. When will they be complete? When Jed Wills is healthy. That's when they'll be complete. The Jonas says, what is the plan for Jamari Thrash this season? Do you think I don't think there's a plan for Jamari Thrash to really play that heavily of a role right now. Look, the Browns are at a point to where rookies aren't going to get a ton of play early in their career. They're going to have to wait their turn. And that makes sense. And that's going to be good for development. We talked about Alex Wright. He had to wait his turn to get on the field. And now that he's getting his opportunity, he's making the most of it. That's going to be the same case for Cedric Tillman. It's going to be the same case for Jamari Thrash. These players have promise, but the Browns are talented enough to where they don't have to rely on these players to produce in year 1. So I don't think there's really any plan here for Jamari Thrash to play. He might get some snaps here or there, but I mean, like, let's be honest about it. We're talking about filling David Bell's role on the offense, and that role was so small, he got cut to start the year. So we're talking about like maybe 2 targets a game. I think Jamari Thrash should get some opportunities, especially if there's injuries, but I don't think there's a big plan for Jamari Thrash to play a ton in his rookie year, nor should there be. How concerned should we be about Miles' feet? I'm not that concerned about it. I mean, like, it might become a thing. It might be like his COVID in 2020, where we're explaining why he didn't play as high of a level that he did because of his COVID or his shoulder. I think Myles is going to be relatively okay. He's going to be able to play the whole season. And I think they're just resting him during practice to make sure he's as rested as possible so he can be ready on game day. And Myles has this freakish ability to recover from injury. We've witnessed this freakish ability of him to recover from injury from the start of his NFL career. Remember, he had that ankle issue with the Cleveland Browns, and that was supposed to keep him out for like more than half the year, end up only holding him out like 6 games or something like that his rookie year. And then he had the COVID issue. He recovered from that. And then he had the car accident. He recovered from that. The shoulder injury. He recovered from that pretty quickly. Myles Garrett has a history of recovering from injuries fairly quick. So I'm pretty sure he'll be fine for most of the year. I'm not going to freak out about it. The next question comes from Ant-Man, who says, how do you think the team will bounce back from these injuries? Looking forward to Jack, Conklin, Jed, and Chubb are the big question marks. I don't know if these people are overestimating the impact they'll have. So how much of an effect do you think the returns could have? With Jack and Jed, I do think it's possible that we might overestimate their impact on the game because Jack and Jed have both not been the most consistent players at the tackle positions over the last few years. So I do think there's a chance that we overestimate it. But Nick Chubb, I mean, if Nick Chubb's playing at anywhere close to the level Nick Chubb usually plays at, there's really no way to overestimate how much he brings to this team. You just go, like, I would beg everybody here, if you have NFL Plus in the audience, go watch the Browns play week 1 versus Cincinnati last week. Just go watch that and just see how different this team looks when Nick Chubb's there to run the football. And like, Nick Chubb didn't even have a great game for Nick Chubb in that game. Like, he had a pretty average Nick Chubb game. And that is what the Browns offense is capable of looking like. Like, that's the difference that Nick Chubb makes. Every time I watch a game with Nick Chubb in it, I am just blown away by how much I underestimate what Nick Chubb brings to the table. And I'm somebody who is a big Nick Chubb guy. And I think we underestimate what he brings to the table here, especially when everybody's running too high. Nick Chubb, I think it's almost impossible to overestimate what he brings to the table. He's that good. No, I don't think that about Nick Chubb, but I do think that with the other guys there that you mentioned. So thank you guys for the questions. Y'all have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.